You don't mind having lower taxes, do you, anybody?
A couple of years ago, if you talked to any financial planner, they probably gave you a pretty stark warning about taxes. They told you to prepare for a massive cliff. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA, of 2017 was scheduled to expire completely, meaning tax brackets were going to jump across the board. The standard deduction would be reduced, and estate tax exemptions would be cut in half. But then, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, OBBBA or OBBBA, was signed into law, and it completely rewrote the playbook. You are retired, or if you are sitting on a multi-million-dollar nest egg approaching retirement, this legislation changes everything about how you should move your money. It didn't just smooth over the cracks, it created several temporary windows of opportunity and a few brand new permanent rules that you can take advantage of immediately.
The tax cut bill.
Now, this is not a political commentary, and today we're going to set aside the politics and just break down what the One Big Beautiful Bill Act does for financial planning for you. There are 4 critical components of the new tax code that directly affect your portfolio, your income, and your legacy. And there's also one stealth tax trap that you need to be aware of. So let's do it. Let's start with the biggest sigh of relief. The scheduled sunset of the lower individual income tax brackets has been permanently repealed. The brackets we have grown accustomed to over the last 8 years, the 12%, 22%, the 24%, and 32% thresholds, are here to stay. Why does this matter so much for a high net worth retiree? It fundamentally changes your Roth conversion timeline. Up until recently, our primary objective for clients with large traditional IRAs was a race against the clock. We were converting heavily up to the top of the 24% or sometimes the 32% brackets just because we knew those rates were going to jump. So it acted like a hard deadline for us. But because these brackets are stable, at least for now, your strategy shifts from rushing conversions to smoothing them out. Instead of going through a large high tax conversion that pushes you into the high federal brackets and spikes your Medicare premiums, we can now relax and map out a clean surgical conversion over 5, 7, or even 10 years, always staying just below major tax thresholds. If you have a sizable pre-tax account balance, your goal is no longer to get it all over to a Roth by next year. Your goal is to maximize your tax bracket real estate smoothly over the next decade. Now let's talk about legacy, because this is where the law becomes incredibly powerful for affluent families. Under the old rules, the federal estate and gift tax exemption was looming over estate planners like a dark cloud. It was set to drop back down to roughly $7 million per person. If your combined estate, including your home, businesses, and your liquid portfolios, was over $14 million as a couple, your heirs were looking at a massive 40% federal tax bill on every dollar above that line. OBBBA completely eliminated that fear by permanently lifting the exemption to $15 million per individual, or $30 million for a married couple, and then that's going to be indexed for inflation. What this means logistically is that the vast majority of American families no longer have a federal estate tax problem. But it doesn't mean you stop planning. It means you now need to focus on different things. And instead of spending thousands of dollars setting up hyper-complex restrictive trusts just to bypass a federal tax, your focus should shift to 2 things: state-level estate taxes and asset protection. Remember, many states like Oregon, Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, and several in the Northeast have state-level estate tax exemptions that are significantly lower than the federal limit. This surprises some people. So sometimes these trigger at just $1 million or $2 million. So even if you owe zero to the IRS, your estate could still owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to your home state. Additionally, with the federal tax pressure removed, we can focus on building strategies designed purely to shield your children's inheritance from divorces, lawsuits, or predatory creditors, rather than just tax code compliance. So you have more options, more flexibility here. Now, the third major piece of the OBBBA puzzle is the temporary relief given to the state and local tax deduction, commonly known as the SALT cap. Since 2018, taxpayers have been strictly limited to a maximum of $10,000 deduction for their state income taxes and local property taxes. For retirees living in high-tax states or those owning high-value real estate, this cap was a massive penalty. OBBBA raised this cap temporarily to $40,000 per year through 2029. This is an incredible window of relief if you have a high property tax bill. However, Congress built a steep cliff into this provision. This expanded $40,000 deduction begins to phase out rapidly if your modified adjusted gross income crosses $500,000. If you are a high net worth retiree who needs to generate liquidity, say by selling a piece of real estate or taking a large lump sum distribution from a non-qualified account that has a really low basis, you have to look at the math carefully. If that transaction pushes your overall income to $550,000, you don't just pay tax on the gain, you also completely lose your $40,000 SALT deduction at that point, creating a compounding tax penalty. So, for example, instead of liquidating an entire position in a single year, it may be prudent to split the sale over 2 or 3 years to keep your magi strictly below that $500,000 threshold so that you can keep utilizing the full $40,000 SALT deduction. Now, as promised, let's cover the stealth tax trap that I talked about earlier that's buried deep inside this bill. While OBBBA extended a lot of benefits, it had to find a way to shore up some money to at least fund some of this. So to do that, the law significantly lowered the phase-out thresholds for the alternative minimum tax, the AMT, for high earners, particularly those with incomes exceeding $1 million. The AMT is essentially a parallel tax system with fewer deductions, designed to ensure wealthy individuals pay a baseline percentage. For years, the AMT wasn't a major issue for retirees because the exemptions were so high. But with these new lower thresholds, if you execute a massive Roth conversion, exercise highly concentrated stock options, or sell a business or real estate in a single year, you could easily trigger the AMT. This would instantly disqualify many of your standard deductions and force a much higher tax calculation than what you would expect from your standard bracket. The overarching takeaway here is that the new tax code gives retirees an incredible amount of stability and some highly lucrative windows, but only if you're willing to do the due diligence to take advantage of them. Tax planning in retirement is no longer a set it and forget it exercise. It requires an annual line-by-line review of your specific income levers. Now, the final important aspect of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that probably impacts more of you than anything else is the additional senior tax deduction. But it's a much bigger topic on its own. So we get into the weeds to help make sure you can take full advantage in this video. Now, if you found this information helpful, do me a quick favor, leave a comment below letting me know, are you modifying your Roth conversion strategy or anything else because of these new rules? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.